In a new Substack piece, investigative journalist Lee Fang breaks down how the FBI reportedly assists Ukrainian intelligence in hunting disinformation on social media platforms.
According to a senior Ukrainian official who, quote, corresponds regularly with the FBI pressures Facebook to take down alleged Russian disinformation ordered by Ukrainian intelligence. Lee Fang reports. Fang says the official defined disinformation as any news that contradicts the Ukrainian government's message. Joining us now to tell us more is investigative independent journalist Lee Fang. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So what's going on now? Is the Ukrainian government now the arbiter of truth?
Look, we don't know the extent to this partnership. And, I had an extended interview with this security official from Ukraine who kind of divulged some of these details, but he declined to talk about which forms of content they were taking down. But this kind of peels back a window into how this partnership works, that this partnership even exists. We've known for the last 5 or 6 years that since the 2016 election, over concerns about Russian influence, the FBI has rapidly expanded the special unit, the Foreign Influence Task Force, that meets regularly with the large social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and others, and they work to kind of spot potential or alleged foreign influence to kind of influence some of these content decisions. But this story reveals that it's also foreign governments, at least the Ukrainian government, that are leaning on this FBI partnership to take down alleged Russian disinfo. And this Ukrainian intelligence official, security official, explained that they see disinfo, Russian disinfo, very broadly. They define it as really any news, even if it's real news that runs counter to their government's narrative.
Yeah, and that's not surprising at all. Domestic forces also define misinformation as broadly as possible as just like anything they disagree with. It would be interesting if the social media companies pushed back against this stuff substantially. I think what we saw from a lot of Twitter Files disclosures was some pushback and then kind of grudging acceptance that they were going to have to go along with what law enforcement was saying because the pressure was so vast and it was potentially connected to legislative action down the road. And from my looking at the pressure campaign, Facebook was even more inclined to go along with everything than Twitter was. So do we have any sense yet from how Facebook felt about this internally? I'm thinking of some of the pushback on the Twitter side from the Russian bot list, where internally they're like, this list kind of seems totally illegitimate, but I guess we're not going to do anything about it.
Well, no, that's a very interesting dynamic, and I'm glad you bring that up, Robbie, because we don't have the same kind of insight into Facebook as we do with Twitter. Obviously, Facebook has not been purchased by Elon Musk. Those files have not been opened up to journalists. So, we really have kind of a stilted view here. We have a lot of vision into some of those decisions by Twitter. And yes, you're right. We saw pushback against some of these government and law enforcement requests, and then kind of a slow encroachment where, day by day, Department of Homeland Security, FBI, and intelligence officials leaning on Twitter, pressuring them, saying, you don't want to be part of this investigation on Capitol Hill. You should comply with these questions. We need more evidence of Russian influence. And so you saw Twitter executives becoming more and more kind of complacent with these demands. And even if they weren't even sure if this was true or had any evidence of actual Russian disinformation or that certain accounts were tied to Russia, they started complying with takedown requests. In an atmosphere where there's a lot of fear around manipulating an election. We saw a lot of those Twitter files around the 2020 election. There was a concern of doing not enough. So Twitter executives kind of overextended themselves and really complied a lot with those requests. And so you have to wonder, with a situation as volatile and as polarizing as the war between Ukraine and Russia, there's a similar element here that no one wants to be on the side of these of Russia, of helping any kind of Russian disinformation. So when these requests come in, it's plausible to see it with a similar kind of emergency status that action has to be taken. But Facebook has not responded to my requests for comment. They haven't really, been under the same level of scrutiny as Twitter. And, as the Ukrainian official explained to me, much of their requests to their FBI partnership are going to Facebook.
So we don't know the extent of the relationship. We do know that a relationship does exist. And it seems to me that when we get into the space of foreign policy, there's a lot of discretion for the federal government in the United States to say what is and what is not safe to say publicly, what is safe and is not safe in a time where our allies are at war. What can you post about? What is a threat to the state? That's very concerning, because it seems to me that if you're denying access to information, and Facebook being complicit with this, perhaps they had no choice, we're not really sure. There have been occasions where journalists and whistleblowers and corporations have said, we're going to do what the FBI or, the IRS in the case of ProPublica is asking us not to do in the interest of making this, information accessible. How do you take this when it comes to freedom of information? How do we hold our representatives accountable when it comes to foreign policy, when the information is treated so intensely like this, and there's so much precaution given to what people can even see?
Look, we're over a year of this war in Russia, Ukraine, and we're not seeing a lot of independent journalism, a lot of dissenting voices. There's a very kind of aggressive bandwagon effect that's kind of, the emotions are very high, the danger level is very high, but most people are receiving their news from Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms, and it's very dangerous if the government is shaping what we can see in terms of that news content. If they're using, concerns around war, around foreign influence to censor or block or throttle independent dissenting voices, it's very difficult for a democracy, for a country like this, to come to an informed debate around what should the U.S. role be, what should our strategy be, what are our policymakers doing in terms of major decisions around this war. So, for any major conflict, whether you're talking about conflicts in the past, on the Vietnam War to the Iraq War and Afghanistan, we've seen efforts by the government to shape public opinion, to kind of corral the news media, to kind of get on board with the government message. And I think this conflict is actually very similar. We're seeing a lot of the news filtered through just a few social media platforms. So we have to be vigilant about the role of the government in shaping the news that we see.
Well, and it's just stunningly hypocritical, right? We hear so much hand-wringing and concern about foreign interference on social media, foreign interference relating to policy choices and elections. In what way does this not meet the definition of foreign interference to have a Ukrainian partisan cooperating with an agency of the U.S. government to influence the discourse in a policy direction on a social media company? It's exactly what they said, they say the Russian influence is doing, except the other way.
No, you're right. This is definitionally foreign influence. It's a foreign government partnering with our government to help shape the decisions at a major social media platform. But the rules are kind of thrown out the window when it comes to our allies, right? When it's NATO allies working with these social media platforms, it's okay. And we see this kind of bending of the rules or hypocrisy in some of the Twitter files as well. The Twitter executives were promising to shut down every foreign government, every military social information operation if there's fake accounts being used to promote a military or U.S. government narrative and kind of being puppeteered by any foreign government with fake aliases. They would report it, they would disclose it, they would shut it down. But the Twitter files show that when it came to the Pentagon, when the Defense Department was operating a fake network of accounts in Arabic to influence public opinion in Iraq and Yemen, Syria, and other countries, Twitter executives were giving them the white glove treatment. They were giving them concierge service, helping them provide special tools for increased visibility, helping them mask their accounts so they wouldn't be caught. All the while, Twitter executives were going on television telling Congress, "Oh no, we disclose and shut down every government and military operation like this." There's just a different set of rules for the U.S. government and for U.S. military allies when it comes to foreign influence or these kind of covert accounts.
We're the good guys, so it's different when we do it.
That's right. How about that? Lee Fang, thank you so much for joining us.